presentation on how to connect ACT with Office 365. In today's ACT world, we have ACT as a standalone system, and we have Office 365 as the cloud solution that Microsoft offers for Office. What we're going to do is take 1-2-3 Sync and connect ACT with Office 365. One question we always get is why Office 365? And that's because every iPhone, Android, or Windows phone connects to Office 365. So the challenge to do this connection is how to map each ACT user to the respective Office 365 folders. How to access all user mailboxes from a centralized server. So you set up 1-2-3 Sync, you want to just set it up in one place and have all ACT users, all Office 365 mailboxes. Also, how to set up 1-2-3 Sync and the sync environment. These are pretty big challenges and they require a certain amount of technical know-how, but we'll try to make it easy. The ultimate goal is to have Office 365 and ACT and have all the contacts, calendar, and emails sync for each user. Chris Huffman to Chris Huffman, Betty Browser in Office 365 to Betty Browser, and Alan to Mikola, and so on. So what is Office 365? In essence, it's Exchange for the masses. It's a hosted exchange with a web-based management interface that allows you to create and manage the mailboxes in Office 365. It supports hosted as well as client Outlook, and all major smartphone manufacturers sync with Office 365, iPhone, Androids, or Windows phones. And it's a common communication platform. So what do you need to set this up? We need access to ACT with administration rights. We need access to Office 365 accounts so we can set it up and log in. We need Outlook. It could be 2007, 2010, or 2013. These are the three versions that we have internally and that we use to access Office 365. And you need 1-2-3 Sync 2013. So we'll have Office 365 and we'll connect Outlook with Office 365, and then we'll connect 1-2-3 Sync with into ACT. Once we do those two, then we'll connect both Outlook and 1-2-3 Sync and perform a full sync. This demonstration will do a couple of things. First, we'll set up the accounts in Office 365. We'll connect Outlook to those accounts. And then we'll connect 1-2-3 Sync to ACT. And we set up 1-2-3 Sync to access the different Outlook users. And then we do a multi-user sync between ACT and Office 365. That will establish the relationship, and then we'll sync all the data between ACT and Office 365. So let's go to our web browser. This is our default page. We have a little shortcut for Office 365. We'll click on that, and here we are, and we sign in. Let's put in the password. We signed in. So this is our portal. This is our Jack Hall is our administration individual, and he basically can add, and he's got all the administration privileges on the users for Office 365. So we click on users. We click on the users, and then here we have Jack Hall is a single user. So now we're going to create a couple of users that are going to be our Office 365. In many cases, these users already exist, but we'll start from scratch. So click New User. We'll just add. So I'm going to Chris Huffman guy. Okay, I call it Chris Huffman. Chris Huffman at the 123sync at the account that we have. So click on next. And it's very important to get the right location. Don't use the default location. So make sure that you get the right country. So in our case would be the United States. And also, if on top of that you need the right time zone. Otherwise you're gonna have a time issue between the local time and the time that you got to set it up. Click on next. Say yes, create. So make sure that you actually write down the password, because you'll need this password later. But anyway, so we have this here. And that's a temporary password. So you can say create another user. Betty Browser. So what we've done now is created Alison Mikola, Betty Browser, and Chris Huffman as being users of Office 365. So now we have to now log in so we can set their passwords. So before we continue, we have now to go back and sign in as each individual so the password gets reset. So let's go as Chris Huffman at 123sync. And we're going to put in the password that was mailed to us. Here we put in the password. Click in, just copy the password, and then it will request for the new password. So we just put it in here, and then we add a new password for the Chris Huffman. So it asks you, after you reset the password, it asks you to log in again as that particular individual. So now Chris Huffman is set up. So we're going to follow the same process for Betty Browser and Alison Mikola. So we have now reached the end of step 1, which is to set up the accounts in Office 365. We have set up the accounts for Chris Huffman, Alison Mikola, and Betty Browser. So our next step now is to connect Outlook to the accounts on Exchange. So the whole point is to use the Outlook interface to access the multiple accounts on Exchange. So let's see how we do that. The first thing we do is we need to exit Outlook so we don't have any instances of Outlook running on the system. The next step, we go to Start and we go to the Control Panel. So from the Control Panel, we click on the Mail utility. The Mail utility basically allows us to access the profiles in Outlook. So what we're going to do is we're going to create 3 profiles for each of our users. So we click on Show Profiles, and here we just say, okay, let's add one profile. Call it Chris Huffman. And in this profile, we basically call Chris Huffman, and we just put in the email address that we just created, which is chris.huffman@123sync.onmicrosoft.com, and we put in the password that we entered. You put it in twice. Click So now we're logged in into Chris Huffman, and we established a network. So that profile has been set. So we'll just add the next profile. The next profile would be Betty Browser. And we put in Betty Browser, and we put the same way we did before, betty.browser at 123sync.onmicrosoft.com, and then we put in the password. The same way we did before, we put in the password for Betty Browser to access the Exchange server under that profile. Just click next, and now what it would happen, the profile sees that it can actually log in into that machine, and it's telling us that it can't. So we put in the incorrect password, so we'll just reset it again. It says yes, finish. So now I have Chris Huffman and Betty Browser logged in into the server. So we just add the third one. So now we have added the 3 users that we want to sync: Alison Mikola, Betty Browser, and Chris Huffman. Make sure that you have the prompt for a profile to be used enabled. Don't use the default profile, use the prompt for a profile to be used. That makes sure that you get the right profile when you sync. Click OK, and now you're all set. So now we have enabled or created these 3 profiles. So now we got to look at the properties of the profiles. So let's click on Show Profiles, go back in here, and then let's click on Alison Mikola. We'll click on Properties, and we'll look at the email accounts properties for it. So that will actually get that profile's email account properties and how it behaves. So we select the email account, which is an Exchange account, and we do click on Change. What we're looking for is we want to disable cache Exchange mode, because we're dealing with hosted Exchange and we want to keep the data synced. We disable this, so that goes directly. And make sure that you have a reliable network when you do that. So we click Next and Finish. So we do that for all 3 users. So Betty Browser, same thing. We'll go onto the profile and just take the cached email into a non-cache. So you're dealing directly with the Exchange server. Click here, disable that, and do that for the last one, the third one, Chris Huffman. Oh, that one is still asking for the password. Okay. Click here, change, take that away, and we finish. Now you're all set to access the Exchange data directly with Outlook. One thing I like to do as a final check is to make sure that all the passwords are correct, so there's no prompts, because these prompts will happen in the middle of a sync. So I just select the profiles. So you will go back to Mail, click on Show Profiles, and from here I just go on each one of them and just look at email accounts, and just make sure that that you get no prompts for passwords. So you make sure that all the passwords are set properly. That way you know that when Outlook connects, that there's not going to be any hiccups. So you're connecting now to the Exchange accounts under different passwords. Let's do the next test. The next test is make sure that Outlook actually connects to these accounts. So let's click on Outlook and just select the profile that you want to connect to. Click OK. and Outlook now is connecting directly with the Exchange server. This may take a little while because as it's loading the profile, it's going through the initial setup. And if you're running Business Contact Manager will be disabled when accessing Exchange on non-cache mode, and you get this warning from BCM that you cannot run it in non-cache mode. But that's okay. We don't want Business Contact Manager to be running. And on our machine here, we have Business Contact Manager, but on Exchange, we would not have or on a system, we would not have Business Contact Manager. So you could click on Contact. We'll click a new contact here. Always make sure that you can create the contact. Test 111. Click Save and Close, and that will save it on the Exchange server. So let's call this Alison Mikola. Let's just edit it. Listen, Mikola test contact. Call that in. So now we've created this on the Exchange server. So we can just exit. So on the next time we double click on Outlook, it will come up again. And we really want to access the other accounts that we've set up and make sure that Outlook goes through that initial starting process to set up all the parameters that are required. And this in this instance, it comes with the default, and Get Betty Browser will be the next one. So now we're going through the same thing with Betty Browser and see what is going on and how it's working. So it loads the profile, and of course, again, if you're running Business Contact Manager, Business Contact Manager will prompt you with a warning saying that it will not work with Exchange and in non-cache mode. So we can go into the contacts to Betty Browser and say, okay, let's go a new contact, and we just create. And we always like to create the contacts, so just for testing. So Betty Browser test contact. So when we open the browser and we go directly to the Exchange server, that we actually know what the Exchange server gonna say, and that we're actually getting data there. Okay, Betty's company. Okay. So I also go back to the browser and double check that everything is working. So I've exited Outlook and gone to Office 365 and trying to log in as that particular user. So here's Betty Browser. So we should have a contact here for with Betty Browser. So let's log in and then just see what we get. So that ensures that Outlook is running and that my connectivity with the Exchange server is actually running pretty well. And this is a very important piece. When you log in for the first time as that particular user, it comes up with a time zone. If you set the incorrect time zone, there's going to be a discrepancy between the date it's created in ACT and the date it's going to be created on the Exchange server. So make sure that you get the right time zone. Otherwise, you're going to have a differential between the two times. Click OK. So now we just enter, and if we go into contacts, we should see our contact, and here's Betty's company. So if you double click, and that's the data we put in there. So now we have Outlook and Exchange running properly. So now we want to connect 123Sync with ACT to get that ready to be synchronized. So now let's open the ACT database using 123Sync. So we click on the browse, and the database we're going to be choosing is the ACT demo database, which is an ACT data databases, the ACT demo, which is the 2013 We click on open. We say yes to full sync. And Chris Huffman is the admin, so we're going to use him. Put in the password. Make sure that we get the right country. And now we're basically we restart 123 sync. And we're now set to set up all the settings to sync between ACT and the Exchange server. So the next step is to make sure that the profiles match the users in ACT. So let's click on the control panel, start mail. Here's our mail program, and we'll click on show profiles. And these are all our profiles. So we have listed the profiles, and these are the profiles that we want to use. So we'll go to Alison Mikola. We call just Alison Mikola. And then we also test the ACT login details, which we put in the password, test the ACT login. Just check it that the profile is valid. And running a test will just check the profile. It will just make sure that the profile is valid for it. So we just select the folders. Click on the folder, and that will select the contacts for Alison Mikola. Click OK, and then click on the next folder. Now we'll select for calendar. So now we have Alison Mikola all set up for contacts, calendar, the profile works, and the ACT login works. So we go to Betty Browser. Very much the same thing. So Betty Browser is Betty Browser for the profile, Betty Browser. And so we test that. So we test the Betty Browser, and it will tell us whether the profile exists or not, or if it failed to log in or not. So it says OK. So we put in the password for ACT and for Betty Browser. Make sure that you can log in ACT. And then on the contacts, click on the contacts. And now you get the list from Outlook select for the Betty Browser. Usually this takes a little bit longer because it's connected to the Exchange. So you always make sure that you got the right name on top. So this contacts for Betty Browser. So click OK, and then go to calendar. Again, it will come up again because we start a new session every time this happens. And click on the calendar, and that's where we're going to put the calendar. So now Betty Browser is all set up. So Chris Huffman the same way. We click Chris Huffman, and we've got to test it. So all we have to do is you can also just click on the folder, and that will start Outlook and start the Outlook session to log in. And there's Chris Huffman. Chris Huffman, say, just select the calendar. And there we are. So we're set up. So all three users now are set up to sync with the Exchange server. That's a pretty easy setup. What takes time is setting up the Outlook piece, but now we connected to ACT, we connected to the Exchange server, and in less than 5 minutes we're set up. So we're not ready to sync yet. We first have to look at a couple of settings. One of them is the contacts filter. Make sure that you got all the contacts or whatever selection of contacts you want to bring over as well. And then look, we need to look at the advanced settings, and on the advanced settings we disable the leave Outlook open, and you make sure that we have sync Exchange folder. And that means that it will, at the end of the sync, it will actually force a hard sync between your local server and the Exchange. In some installations, we've seen that the interface, even though you're non-cache mode, it does not sync everything. It keeps some data resident. By doing this, you're forcing at the end of every sync to sync the data that you've created locally into the server, and that should actually work just fine. And make sure that you don't have Outlook open when you run that. So we're ready now, and we just click on synchronize. It will show who we're trying to synchronize and sync users, and basically it will log in into the users into Outlook. Outlook is not open, it's closed, but it will log into the Outlook transport, and then access the contact database in Exchange, and then just put it out. For Alice and Mikola, we only have 60 contacts, so it will sync 60 contacts over to the Exchange server and put it there. So let's go to our Office 365 account and see how we're faring. So the first one to sync was Alice and Mikola, so let's log in. listen.mikola@123sync.onmicrosoft.com, and let's put in the password. Okay, let's just log in, and we'll click on Outlook, and that will get us into the Outlook interface. We have to look at the contacts, see if we have any contacts, and here are all the contacts that we've created, and these contacts are done by the sync. So our solution is working across the network into the cloud, into Office 365. To conclude, what we've demonstrated here, that you install 123Sync on one machine and sync all ACT users and Office 365 mailboxes from one location. You can set up the accounts in Office 365, and that is going to Office 365 and setting up all the accounts from scratch. It takes about 10 minutes, which will probably be the biggest effort that you're going to make. You can connect those accounts, connect Outlook to those accounts. It takes 5 minutes or less, as long as you use the right username and passwords. And then you can connect 123Sync to ACT. It takes 1 minute. And then you set up 123Sync to access all the different Outlook users. In our case, for 3 users, we set up in 3 minutes. So for 3 minutes, 1 minute per user to just put in the name and then the username and password. And then, of course, we run 123Sync for all the users interactively. The next step would be to run 123Sync in the background once you run it a couple of times with the Exchange server or with Office 365. This concludes our demonstration on how to set up 123Sync to get ACT data and synchronize it with the Office 365, or you can use the same thing to synchronize with Exchange. Contact your integrator or 123sync.com if you need more information on how to purchase or how to set up these items, or how we can help you. Thank you.